Chicago PD Season 12 finale's death and Burzek's ending scene addressed by showrunner. NBC's Chicago PD aired its finale on Wednesday, May 21, officially closing out the broadcast season's final one Chicago night. The installment sees Sean Hatos's character, Reed, shot and killed, but the real twist comes when Chapman discovers that Voight sanctioned his death. Voight tells Chapman that he doesn't get to have more, implying a potential end to what had been building between them. However, Vows does conclude on a happier note for another couple. Burgess and Burzek finally make it down the aisle after years of a will-they-won't-they romance. The episode ends with the characters at the altar, and showrunner Gwen Sagan confirms that the wedding does play out. Whether fans may see more of the ceremony is something that will be decided when returning to the writer's room for Chicago PD Season 13. I caught up with Sagan about Reed's death, Voight's relationship with Chapman, and what to expect now that Burzek is officially married. Reed is killed, but Sean Hatosy is just such a great actor. Was there ever a time when you thought, hey, maybe we can keep him around? Chapman finds out that Voight sanctioned Reed's death. What does this mean for their relationship and the trust between them? Right before Reed dies, he says to Voight, "You're worse than me." How much thought is Voight going to put into that going forward? The good news is that Burgess and Burzek finally get to the altar, but then the episode ends. Is there going to be a time jump, or will the next episode pick up where we left off? What do you imagine that storyline looking like for the two of them after all these years of will they or won't they? Chicago PD is a riveting police drama about the men and women of the Chicago Police Department's elite intelligence unit, combating the city's most heinous offenses: organized crime, drug trafficking, high-profile murders, and beyond. At the center of Chicago PD is Sejdet, Hank Voight, Jason Begg, who is at ground zero against the war on crime in Chicago and is fiercely determined yet complicated. The intelligence unit will be tested as it learns how to work efficiently with a new deputy chief of police. In addition, a new member has been added to its ranks: Officer Kiana Cook, a tough patrol officer ready to prove her worth within the unit. The dim glow of Chicago streetlights filtered through the rain-slicked windows of the 21st District as the final chords of the Chicago PD season finale faded out, leaving viewers stunned, breathless, and reeling from a shocking death at a long-awaited Burzek moment that felt like a decade in the making. In the aftermath, showrunner Gwen Sagan sat down in a quiet, rain-drizzled office, haunted, perhaps, by the emotional earthquake she had unleashed. It was never going to be an easy goodbye. Sagan began, her fingers wrapped around a chipped intelligence unit mug. And that's what made it the right time. The death in question: Officer Kevin Atwater, a pillar of strength and morality, gunned down in an ambush that none of intelligence saw coming. The final moments of his life were spent protecting a civilian child, a heartbreaking echo of his earliest seasons when he was still learning how to balance compassion with the job's darkness. Sagan took a long pause. We debated a lot in the room. Could we lose Atwater? Should we? But ultimately, this story needed stakes, real, irreversible stakes. Kevin represented the soul of intelligence. So what happens when the soul is taken? The finale unfolds with tension baked into every scene. Voight, grayer and more gravelly than ever, had a sense of foreboding as the team closed in on a violent gun-running syndicate that had eluded them all season. The unit had been fractured. Burzek still recovering from the shootout last season, Burgess nursing emotional wounds from Michaela's kidnapping, and Halstead still MIA in Bolivia led the team into what should have been a routine takedown. A second shooter appeared, hidden in the shadows. The shot rang out like a thunderclap, and Atwater collapsed, blood blooming across his vest. Voight's scream of "man down" was primal, raw, a rare crack in his usually stoic exterior. But the most unforgettable scene wasn't just the loss of Atwater. It was what happened later, once the adrenaline had ebbed and the storm had cleared. Burzek, Detective Adam Ruzek, and Officer Kim Burgess stood in the locker room, shoulders hunched and eyes heavy. The lighting was soft, a poetic contrast to the brutality they'd just witnessed. For years, fans had begged for a resolution to their slow-burn saga, one littered with trauma, near-deaths, shared parenting, and breakups that hurt more than gunshot wounds. "We always said Burzek would have their moment, but not in a fairy tale way," Sigan explained. "Their love is built from the mess, so we had to give them closure that felt earned." The ending scene had no kiss, no proposal, no sweeping orchestral swell. Just Ruzek sitting on the bench, head in his hands, and Burgess slowly sliding down next to him. Silence. Shared grief. Then in a whisper so low it almost wasn't heard. "I'm still here, Adam. If you are." He looked up and nodded. "I am." It was the simplest line in the episode, yet one that felt like the resolution of 10 years' worth of pain and resilience. There were no fireworks, but there was truth. And for Burzek, that was enough. Sigan leaned forward, clearly emotional. "I didn't want to end this season with an overt promise. I wanted to end it with a breath. A breath that says, we're still standing. That's Burzek. That's the team. That's Chicago." The writers' room had reportedly toyed with alternate endings. At one point, they considered reuniting Burgess and Ruzek through a spontaneous elopement in Vegas, or having them decide to adopt another child to expand their makeshift family. But none of those ideas felt authentic to who they had become, battle-worn, mature, still learning how to be whole people before they could be whole together. One discarded script even had Atwater survive, but be left paralyzed, transferring out of intelligence. But in the end, Sigan said, the weight of his sacrifice needed to land. His death wasn't just about loss, it was a catalyst. That catalyst, she hinted, would send Voight spiraling in season 12. "This will be his reckoning," she said. "He's lost a lot over the years, but this one breaks him. And when Voight breaks, Chicago burns." There was also a brief mention of what lies ahead for Burgess and Ruzek. They're together emotionally, if not formally. That's the seed. Whether they grow it into something more next season, we'll see. But I'll say this. They've stopped running. The finale also left other threads dangling. Torres was seen contemplating leaving the force entirely, watching the city skyline with disillusionment in his eyes. Upton, reeling from her partner's absence and the brutality of the job, requested a reassignment, though it's unclear whether it's permanent. The intelligence unit is not just down a man. They're fractured, bleeding, and haunted. But in all the darkness, Sigan sees a strange kind of hope. Every end is a beginning. And Kevin's legacy will reshape this unit, she said. You'll see it in the way Voight changes, in the way Ruzek steps up, in the way Burgess redefines strength, not just as a cop, but as a mother, a partner, a woman who's endured hell and still shows up. As she closed her notebook and finished her coffee, Sigan gave one final thought. The death hurt. Burzek's scene broke a lot of people, but it's because these characters matter. Their pain matters. And we'll honor that next season, not by glossing over it, but by digging in even deeper. And so, as the city sleeps under another rain-soaked Chicago night, fans are left to mourn, to hope, and to wait for justice, for love, for answers.